Jon Snow, the true-born son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, not Ned Stark's illegitimate child. After Lyanna passed away, Ned gave him the name Jon so that Robert Baratheon wouldn't know who he really was. Lyanna had feared that Robert would kill Jon if he discovered that he was a Targaryen, so the show covered up his reality. Jon Snow is the legal child of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen, as was revealed in the Game of Thrones Season 7 finale. Rhaegar was Daenerys Targaryen's older brother and the Mad King Aerys II Targaryen's son. Ned Stark's younger sister, Lyanna, was engaged to Robert Baratheon when she ran away with Rhaegar and gave birth to Jon, their unborn child from a covert relationship. A recent Game of Thrones Season 8 promotional teaser placed a lot of focus on Jon's lineage and made a significant allusion to Lyanna's tomb and the feather that Robert had buried there. Since Season 1, the program has been teasing viewers with information regarding Rhaegar and Lyanna's romance. Ned chose to raise Jon as his own, for the boy's own protection throughout his childhood, keeping Lyanna's identity a secret. Ned, nevertheless, is a morally upright person. When he could, he avoided flat-out lying. So, when Jon inquired about Ned's mother in Season 1, Ned cautiously responded, "The Stark you are. Despite not having my name, you do have my blood." Jon does undoubtedly have Stark family blood in him. Just by chance, Lyanna's blood is present, and not Ned's. Daenerys encounters a string of premonitory visions as soon as she steps into Qarth's House of the Undying. She observed snow in the King's Landing throne room in one. Immediately after, she entered a door and arrived at the wall. This was a clear indication of Jon's true ancestry and his connections to the Targaryen dynasty. Prior to leaving with Lyanna, Rhaegar was wed to Oberyn Martell's sister, Elia Martell. The prevalent narrative in Westeros was that Rhaegar abducted and hurt Lyanna, but Oberyn seemed to be aware of an alternative account. Tyrion Lannister was informed by Oberyn that he had not visited the capital in a long time. "My sister Elia and the final dragon, Rhaegar Targaryen, are getting married. Loved by my sister. He has children through her. And elegant Rhaegar Targaryen abandoned her for another woman." The fact that viewers were given information other than the kidnap and assault storyline for the first time on the show made it an important moment for theorists watching. A raven brought the word of Daenerys' harrowing capture of Slaver's Bay to Ray Sam Tarly and Maester Aemon at Castle Black. One of Daenerys' remaining living relatives and an uncle is Maester Aemon. He expresses regret for not being there for her when she needed him. In the words of Aemon, "A Targaryen alone in the world, the situation is horrible." Aemon finishes his sentence, and then Jon enters the room. Technically speaking, he is half Targaryen and is essentially by himself in the world. He has few people he can rely on because he is the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. The soundtrack was climactic and incredibly symbolic at that precise time, and the camera work made it evident that Jon was Lyanna's child. The well-known Stark theme song grew dramatically as the shot changed from a young Jon to an adult, emphasizing the significance of the occasion. This reveal gave Jon a vast and important past, which viewers were supposed to grasp. Being both a Stark and a Targaryen, Jon's parentage's revelation also made him the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne, which interfered with his devotion to and relationship with Queen Daenerys Targaryen. While Jon originally made an effort to conceal his Targaryen ancestry, word of it spread rapidly because many of his supporters, including his sister Lady Sansa Stark, wanted him to challenge Dany for the crown. For more than 25 years, Jon's parents were Westeros' best-kept secret, but once the information reached Jon, it swiftly traveled to the rest of the nobles of the realm. But unlike HBO's Game of Thrones, which provided an answer about Jon's parentage, the A Song of Ice and Fire books have not yet done the same. Here is a list of all Game of Thrones characters, as well as those from the books, who knew that Jon Snow was a Targaryen before he did. Ned Stark is the only character who has been proven to have known about Jon's real parentage since he was born in both Game of Thrones and the books. In Episode 6 of Game of Thrones, the three-eyed raven transports Bran to a period when Lyanna gave birth to a child before passing away, and left Ned a simple promise. "Promise me, Ned." The baby's identity isn't revealed to be Jon Snow until the final episode of Season 7, demonstrating that Ned was never anything more than his uncle, who had to bear the burden of keeping the secret that Lyanna and Rhaegar had a child together. Ned also lied to his best friend for the rest of their lives, leading most of Westeros to believe that Jon was the son of Ned and a lady he met while on the road at war, because he knew that if Robert Baratheon discovered the truth, he would kill Jon, aka Aegon Targaryen. Ned Stark's reputation was publicly tarnished when he adopted Jon as his bastard son, because it appeared that he had cheated on Catelyn. But Game of Thrones shows that Ned had upheld his honor the entire time, since he was keeping a vow to his dying sister. While the books for Game of Thrones continue to imply that Ned might actually be Jon's father, the only thing we know for sure about him is that he is the only one who has been proven to know Jon's mother. Given that Howland Reed, the father of Jojen and Mira, was present when Lyanna passed away, it was clear from the Ned flashback in Game of Thrones that he wasn't the only figure to have known about Jon all along. Howland obviously understood that Jon was never really Ned Stark's son, because he would have had to explain why he left the tower with a baby in his arms and his sister already dead. Anyone in the realm may have deduced that Jon's father was Rhaegar Targaryen, even if Ned hadn't explicitly told Howland that he was. Since it was said that Rhaegar Targaryen had abducted Lyanna, sexually assaulted her, and then slain her, finding Lyanna with a child implied that Rhaegar was the father. Despite not being in the tower with Ned in the Game of Thrones television series, Howland was the one who eventually yanked Ned away from Lyanna's corpse in the books. Howland Reed will not be a point-of-view character in the A Song of Ice and Fire volumes, since he already knows too much. Author George R.R. Martin disclosed, implying that he is also aware of Jon's parents' identities. Bran Stark was the first person in Game of Thrones to affirm that Jon Snow's parents are Lyanna and Rhaegar, even if he hasn't discovered the truth about Jon Snow in the novels. In a vision with the three-eyed raven at the end of Game of Thrones Season 6, Bran learns that Jon was actually Lyanna's child. Season 7 will reveal more about his paternity. Bran was beginning to realize that Jon was the child of Lyanna and Rhaegar, but up until Sam filled in the blanks about their covert union, Bran thought he was still a bozo. In the 7th season of Game of Thrones, the three-eyed raven appeared. Bran had a dream in which he saw Lyanna Stark marry Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, proving that Jon, who was actually Aegon Targaryen, was their true-born son and the legitimate successor to the Iron Throne. Samwell Tarly, who had heard about Jon Snow's Targaryen heritage via Bran Stark, was the last person to learn about it before the character himself. At the end of Game of Thrones Season 7, when Bran and Samwell cross paths, Bran reveals that Jon needs to know the truth about himself because the new three-eyed raven has faith in the soon-to-be Grand Maester to reveal it. But when Sam and Gilly were in the Citadel, Sam accidentally learned the whole truth about Jon's parents. The annulment of Rhaegar's marriage to Elia Martell and the subsequent covert marriage of Rhaegar to a different lady in Dorne were both mentioned in High Septon Maynard's diary, which Gilly had seen. When Samwell Tarly of Game of Thrones learns from Bran that Rhaegar and Lyanna are Jon's parents, he recognizes that Lyanna Stark was the covert woman Rhaegar secretly wed, making Jon not only their legal son, but also a Targaryen heir.